Okay. Hi, everybody. I do want to at first take this time to thank you for coming. I know it's end of the school year, and I mean it's a nice day out, and it's can be very hectic. So thank you. I appreciate it. My name is Stephanie Johnson. For those that don't know me, I know a few of you, but I don't know a couple of you. Sorry. I am actually in the Talent Together program through Michigan to finish my teaching degree. I will have, let's see, December I'll finish with my bachelor's in art and human communication, and then I'll finish to go do my certification for another year, and then I'll do my apprenticeship program. So I've still got a little bit of time, but that's okay. My own goal is to either be a third or fourth grade teacher. My grandma was a teacher, and it's just something I really like. And other than that, I will go ahead and start. So I have to do a presentation through school for my presentation class about communicating with others in the workplace. And as teachers, we all know you communicate every day. And so that's what this presentation is going to be about. The first thing I want to do is define communication. So we all know it's talking to people, right? So communication is when you're in changing information between two people or two or more people. You know, you're making that relationship, you're building that relationship, you're communicating. The part I want to kind of go through is the active listening part of communication. I know in the couple classes that I've been in, it's been, eye-opening. When you actively listen to people, you're not on your phone, you're not looking at your email, you're not talking to, another teacher, another colleague, or, whoever. You're actively engaging with that person, and you are actually listening to what they're saying. A couple situations I have up here is in one culture, eye contact shows confidence. In another, it may be seen as disrespect. That's one situation that I've come across. And there's such a big thing with miscommunication, right? Miscommunication for this scenario was a job interviewee avoids eye contact and is judged untrustworthy. Unfortunately, the result is they don't get the job due to a cultural misunderstanding. When it comes to actively listening, the communication part gets better, right? You are understanding them better. The communication is a lot clearer. You're using words that, everybody can understand. Another scenario over here I have is a manager tells an employee, I need this soon. Or, I need this soon, yeah. So the miscommunication, right? The employee thinks it means by the end of the week, but the manager meant by the end of the day. Well, the miscommunication resulted in the task was late, leading to frustration by both sides, right? Like that's something super important when we're communicating. Another situation was a friend texts K, and I know a lot of us have probably been in this scenario, but in response to a long message. You send your messages or your friend this long message and then they reply with K. Miscommunication was the sender thinks the friend is angry or annoyed, but in reality, you guys are just busy, right? The miscommunication there, again. So, active listening helps better that miscommunication. The phones again, the emails, the behaviors with kids in class. You have little Johnny over here who's misbehaving, but you have, a class to teach, right? How can you actually actively teach when there's something going on? That is part of communicating. The other part is, making the conscious effort to listen, and it leads to understanding, being more involved, and that better relationship with your student. Another part that I want to talk about is the daily schedules and plans. I'll give you a scenario that I was in recently at one of my other positions. They made plans without me knowing, and then it was like, well, what do I do for the day? I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but Susie and Mary over here were talking about what I was supposed to do, and then I was like, well, I'm not in the loop, guys. Like, you got to tell me if you want me to do something. So the plans in the workplace, you need to include everybody, right? Like if you have a plan for the kiddo, if you have a plan for the parent that's with the kiddo, like everybody should be included, especially because we know our kiddos that have the sensory and the schedule, they need to know their schedule. They need to know what's going on. They have to know. We want to make sure that they're being included. Unfortunately, the not including the people that are involved could potentially lead to gossip, right? Well, so-and-so didn't tell me, oh, well, this and this and this, and like, that's not ever good, right? And unfortunately, it does happen. It leads to just bad vibes, and nobody wants that, right? You want to have those good vibes. I will tell you, though, since I've worked here, this has been a very rewarding school to come to. I have not sensed any of this, so it's not geared towards you. This is just my speech, but we're all one team. I have seen that here. I have seen you guys all work together, and it's super, super, like, just promising for me, right, to hopefully potentially be here one day. Your partner teaching, you're in the same school, you want to make sure that everybody is involved when it comes time to have the plan. We're working together for the kids, right? If we're not here for the kids, who are we here for? We've all gone to school. We don't need to be here. We're here for them. If we're not here for them, then what's the point in being here? Another one I want to talk about is reflective thinking. Now, I know if you have a situation and you're like, oh, shoot, I could have handled that, better. That is the reflective thinking that I'm talking about, the self-awareness part. Are you self-aware that you're communicating not so good, or are you communicating good, right? Are you communicating well with your student or your coworkers? Understanding how we act can be another thing that goes along with self-awareness. You may, body language is super, super important when it comes to self-awareness and self-reflection. You may roll your eyes and not know it. My husband is good for closing his eyes and just, and I'm like, you need to work on that. But, so, everybody's different. Everybody's, everybody has their things that they're, used to doing that they might not know. But understanding how we act and react can be a very, important role when we have our kiddos. We're the ones that they look up to, and it's just very important to make sure that they trust us. They can come to us. They know that, right? Another one is rethinking. This one is a big one for me because up until these couple classes that I've taken, you're set in your ways, right? You're grown up thinking, oh, well, Michigan State's the best. Then you get older and you're like, I like Michigan better. You're so prone to thinking Michigan State is the best because that's what you grew up with. Just like, if you grew up with the behaviors, well, that's just them acting. Well, no, there could be potentially something else going on. Rethinking the situations helps you, but it also helps the kiddos to know we are here for you. We're here to help you. Example I have any of you ever read the book Think Again? Okay, so it was a book based, I think I talked to a couple of you about this book, but it's a book based off of Thinking Again. So in this book, they're fire jumpers. They go ahead of fires and they try to stop them. They try to get ahead of it to stop the spread. One case scenario, they were engulfed in flames around them. They couldn't get out of the situation. So their boss or leader or captain basically was like, leave your stuff, we're going. Like, drop your stuff now, we're going ahead of this fire. We can outrun this. They were like, what? I'm not leaving my stuff. Like, hello, we're firefighters. No, leave your stuff, let's go. They wouldn't listen to him. So unfortunately, they all died, and he survived because he dropped his stuff and outran the fire and got away from it. We're so prone to thinking again, or not thinking that it's, it's in us that we're like, okay, I don't want to do this. I'm not comfortable with this. But it could be our life at stake here. Rethinking the situation can definitely help if you're not used to something, someone else that knows more about something, they might be able to help, right? Especially with the kiddos. Every kid that comes through here has a different background. We all know this. At the other school that I was at, there was a teacher that could not get through to this kiddo. Well, I started there, and I just built a little bit of a different relationship with them. So I was able to help a little bit more than she could. But she was new, or she was old to him, I guess. He was used to her, and I just tried to make that connection, right? The next thing I want to talk about is problem solving. Now, I wrote down the team meetings. I don't know if that's something you guys do. I know PD and stuff is, part of teaching and whatnot, but problem solving, you need to build those relationships. You need those team meetings to build the relationships and have that open communication, because you don't want the bad vibes at work. You want the open communication so everybody feels like they're a part of the team. You are all one, instead of individual. I know in the class that I'm in, it's super nice to see Miss Karsh and Miss Early work together. It's that is just something that I love. And building those relationships, having those team meetings, having the communication open with the others in your workplace is something super, important. It's a no judgment zone, right? You need to, not worry about being judged. Oh, well, he's talking about me or she's talking about. No, they're really here to just do their job. That was one of the things in the classes that I learned was you think someone's talking about you, but in reality they're not. They're really not. You're just self-conscious enough to, okay, well, what did I do wrong, or whatever the scenario is that they might be talking about you. But they're not, and that's a good thing. Also, just, saying hey, are you okay today? And if you're like, yeah, I'm fine. Well, I'm not going to believe you. I'm sorry. But if you have that person that you can go to and trust here at work, to have that relationship, because we all know bad moods lead to just kind of bad atmosphere, right? We don't want to be in a bad mood, because then the kids kind of get in a bad mood. But just to sum everything up here, I want to give my appreciation for everybody coming out. I really appreciate it. And, the communicating is just so important to me, but also for a company. It's definitely something that we work on daily. Like I said, you guys have the PD, and it's very, I think those are rewarding. I don't know about you guys, but as a para, I would love to go to those. You never know what you're going to learn. But also having, you guys, the team teachers, you guys do things differently. You guys communicate to each other just like you two. I love the school, and I really appreciate, coming here. And just the communication that is here reflects, what I've learned in school. And so it's not about being perfect, right? It's about being intentional. We're intentional with what we do. We want to create a positive workplace, right? Not for just you, but for the kids. We're here for the kids. And also, we want to be making sure that the kids and other people that we work with are seen and heard and feel comfortable. And communication is really, a big, big part of that. And it starts with how we speak, how we listen, and how we reflect, which is something that I hope that if you didn't already know, that you might have learned from this speech. And I know, again, that it's very important to understand not everybody comes from the same background, right? Everybody is very different in their, culture and their upbringing and their everything. And, like the example up here, the eye contact was not okay in the one culture, but in the other culture it was respectful. Well, if you don't know that, you can't really do anything about it. But what you can do is make sure you communicate with that person and say, hey, I didn't know that this was something that could have affected you. I'm sorry, I do apologize, but please, know that I'm working on it, basically. I'll understand better. But again, I just thank you so much, and I hope that you did learn something if you didn't already know. So, thank you.